Sorry I didn't make a video yesterday, but I'm gonna give you a recap of yesterday's events this morning. I'll give you a comment on the job I did this morning. But anyway, one of my customers, a guy that I've known for many years, had asked me to take his air conditioner. Of course, yesterday morning I went over there. On the trip over there, my pickup was losing oil really, really bad. I got over there and told him, I said, well, look, I hope I could. Oh, after it's all done, I said, well, I hope I can make it to auto parts store and get some oil. And he said, well, look, let me drive you over to, O'Reilly's. And I almost didn't want him to do it. And I said, well, okay, if you want to. And he drove me over there. You got me a tea at McDonald's, and then I headed back to his house. And he said, well, look, I told him I had to get some friends of mine to drive me over to a job I did over in Glendale. I didn't really want to drive my pickup over. And he said, well, let me loan you this car I've got. I didn't really want to borrow his car because, what if I get a wreck or something? He said, well, look, it's a old car. It's an 88 something Buick. He said, look, he's had it for a long time. He thought about getting rid of it. I said, okay, if you want to loan me your car. So you just grabbed a handful of tools and put them in a box and drove over there. From his house to it's probably 6 or 8 miles to that job. I just didn't really want to drive my pickup. I didn't want to. I've got something I can just replace the seals on now. I'm gonna get to that in a couple of minutes here. But anyway, I can replace just the seals on there, and I've got something rebuildable, usable. So I got something fixable. If it runs out of oil and throws a rod through the side of the engine, it's just all junk. Anybody that's ever done any mechanic work knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, I borrow his car, toss some tools in there, drive over to his job. It's a little reach in a restaurant. If you've been in little restaurants, you know that they don't have just one refrigerator. They've got maybe 6 or 8 of them in there. So that not having one is an inconvenience. It doesn't shut them down. So I said, well, look, I need to come back over here with some more tools. It was lower Freon, or not Freon, but refrigerant. I'm gonna get to that in a minute too here. But anyway, I told him, I said, look, I'm gonna come back tomorrow. So what I went ahead and drove the car back home, had the guy the keys back, and thanked him for loaning me his car. And but when I dumped one of the 2 quarts of oil that had my pickup, and it pretty much behaved itself. I mean, it's still dripping, but not nearly as bad. So I don't get it. I mean, sometimes that leak is really, really bad, and sometimes it's not. I just don't get it. I've crawled under there with it running, and it just looks like it's the rear crankshaft seal. I've never known a leak to be, leak really bad sometimes, and not leak at all other times. I don't get it, but I do definitely need to. I'll get to what I plan to do on my pickup here in another minute. But anyway, I'm gonna have some friends of mine drive me over to that job this morning. With enough equipment. Now that I've covered this a couple times here. Now there's two refrigerants that some of the small regions will use. There's R290 and there's R600. They're both, one of them is propane, one of them is butane. Now this is back in the kitchen with a bunch of stoves and stuff. This has got a stove sitting on top of it. It's got a flat pipe with a couple. It's got it's a type of stove. It's a griddle type of stove they use in restaurants, and I really can't wheel this thing out the door. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a tube cutter. Now this is propane. You can legally vent propane. You can't legally vent the chlorocarbon refrigerants into the air, but you can legally vent propane. So I'm going to just let it vent very, very slowly. Go outside. I just don't care to end up in a fireball. I just don't care to. Anyway, let it vent. My choice would be to roll this thing outside and vent it outside and solder the valve on outside, and take it back inside where I get power to it, and then add the refrigerants in. But I can't roll this. Well, I could, but it would be a major job to roll this thing outside. I think if I cut the tube and vent the refrigerant very, very slowly, I think I'll be good. Then solder the valve on there. Need to make sure I got enough equipment over there to do that. In my friend's vehicle. Let's see what else. On my pickup, I'm going to order some of the parts. I need the pan gasket. I'm going to do the valve cover gaskets. Of course, I need that rear crankshaft seal. Now I might. I think they make a special 2-piece seal. You can do it with the vehicle in there. That's going to be a pain in the ass to do that. And it's probably just as easy to pull the engine out, because I want to do a couple of the freeze plugs. I've got a couple rubber freeze plugs in there, or core plugs, or expansion core plugs, whatever you want to call them. But I always call them freeze plugs. I think most guys call them freeze plugs. But anyway, I've got a couple rubber ones in there. They're back behind the engine mount, so you really can't get to them with the with the engine in there. So I'm gonna get those at the same time when I've got out. I just plan to take off about 2 days. Start about 4 in the morning on the first day. Have my engine hoist and engine stand all set up. Take it out. I'll have to spend part of one day taking it out. You're taking about a day, cleaning up parts and stuff. I got to clean the pan up because this thing's got 250,000 miles on it. There's got to be a bunch of sludge in the bottom of the oil pan, so I need to have a couple gallon cans of gasoline. Yeah, I still clean with gasoline, but I don't smoke. I'm gonna make sure I don't have anything open. I'll get to that story here in a second too. But anyway, I need to spend maybe about a day cleaning that up and then put it back together. Put the seal in there. The one now the Amazon had what I think is the right pan gasket and the right valve cover gasket. The rear seal, I didn't find one, so I'll just pick one up from AutoZone or Check, O'Reilly, something like that. I remember a number of years ago, I was cleaning some parts in gasoline, and this guy was sitting with a lit cigarette, and I said, "Hey, would you mind putting that out?" The guy said, "Let me show you." Well, it's a vapor that burns. So liquid gasoline. Well, you can light it, but he tossed his cigarette into my where I was cleaning parts and said, "Well, look, liquid gasoline doesn't burn." But that's kind of a stupid argument. I just let him go ahead and smoke. I said, "Yeah, if we go, I'm going to tell you another story here in a minute too." But anyway, he said, say, "Well, if we go up in a fireball, it's his fault, not mine." But anyway, there was a restaurant. This has been many years ago. It's what's called the Flight Deck Restaurant. Is over at Goodyear Airport. It's not there anymore. And I don't think it's there anymore. But they, after COVID, they not after COVID, after 9/11, they really changed their rules on getting into any type of airport because they're worried about somebody stealing any type of aircraft in any airport. The security's a lot tighter. But anyway, I think there's some of the facilities you can get over to Goodyear Airport. But anyway, I used to do work for them, but I haven't been over there a long time. But they'd had a bad fire a number of years ago, and somebody was, they weren't open yet, but somebody was in there cleaning with acetone or something. You could smell the stuff real strong. Just had that flammable smell to it. And I had to let out my torch. They had disconnected all their refrigerator equipment. This is back before the 1993 no venting law. So you could just cut stuff and move it and dump the refrigerant legally. You could do that after like June or July of 1993. They made it illegal. So if they catch you deliberately releasing freon into the air, that's a big old federal fine. It goes to anybody. Even if you put a car out of an old, an engine out of an old car, and there's still freon in the air conditioner, if you just pull the lines loose and dump freon in the air, that's a big old federal fine. But anyway, this lady, I asked her, I said, "Is anything flammable in here?" And she looked me square in the eyes and said, "James, if you set this place on fire, you burn it to the ground, make sure nothing rebuildable." I don't know if she's serious, she's BSing with me or what, but I lit my torch and nothing happened. So I guess we're all here, still here. Let's see. Let me get to another. I don't know if I tell. Yeah, I'll tell that story. But anyway, I was with another guy. Another guy had. I can't think what vehicle it was. I don't think I would have. But anyway, he had went to AutoZone, got a rebuilt, rebuilt block. That's where you get. It's a rebuilt, remanufactured engine. It's got the heads on it, but there's no carburetor, there's no tin on there. You just clean that up and and swap that, and you give AutoZone the old engine back. I don't know, back this is probably 30, 40 years ago. He'd give him like $600 or $700 for this. I have no idea if this car is still running because that's been quite a while ago. But anyway, me and a friend of his were I was helping him change this, and it was still. I was sure this was Freon 12. This was after the 93, I think this was after the 93 no vending law. But anyway, I'll explain that again in a second or two. But anyway, now what I wanted to do was take the air conditioning compressor with the line still attached, pull the brackets off, and take a rope. We'd pull the hinge and they hit the hood off. The stuff like the alternator, the power steering pump. You can take some rope in and tie it to the. You leave everything attached. Of course, the alternator just usually just a couple wires. That's no big deal. The power steering pump, it's got the hoses. You can pull them loose if you want to, but usually what I like to do, if you just take an engine out, take it and strap it to the rope it to the hinges, and not have to worry about it. Now the compressor, what I wanted to do, I couldn't get through this guy. I said, look, let's just pull the brackets loose. Let's just take it and take some rope and tie it to the hood hinges, so we're not messing with the hoses, so we don't create a leak where one might not have been there before. He said, now I'm going to take my thumbnail and hold the Schrader valve and dump the Freon out. And I said, well, look, I got EPA certification. You said I can't claim to be innocent. I said, look, I'm going to walk down the block here. Just a block away. And when you're done dumping this Freon out, just wave at me, let me know you're all done, because I don't want to be witness to this. I mean, there wasn't any neighbors around there. People don't have cell phone cameras. Didn't have cell phone cameras around like they do now. I'm sure of course, most of the people around there have no idea that act is illegal. And I'm sure lots of people do it even today, knowing that it's illegal. But anyway, you went ahead and up the Freon it. We pulled the lines loose, and because you got to pull the compressor off anyway when you take the engine out. So why not just take it out and leave the hoses attached? But I couldn't get that argument through his head. But anyway, we swapped all the the compressor, power steering pump, alternator, put those all back, put it in there and started up, and it ran fine. I said it's probably worn out now because it's been a long time ago. Like I said again, I have some friends of mine. I'll get a video from from Glendale when I do that little 2-door reach-in when I'm all done with it. I should have got some videos from yesterday. That the guy that loaned me the car. If you don't put the transmission back in park just right, it'll roll on you. Ask me how I know. Well, I appreciated getting a free ride over there. Getting a going over there, being diagnose the problem, then coming back with the proper tools. But that car had issues. When I was taking off, I found the key didn't work very well. I had the key in and out of there, but a dozen times before I finally got the ignition switch to kick over. And I thought for sure I was stranded, 20 miles from home in somebody else's car. The thought did run through my mind, what the hell do I do now? But I finally got the key over. See, the air conditioner working that thing pretty nice, though. Okay. Ciao. Das Leben ist ein Abenteuer. C'est la vie. And das Leben ist nicht einfach. Now, if anybody doesn't speak a little bit of Hochdeutsch, das Leben ist nicht einfach. Life is not simple. That's going to be something I'm going to include in some of my videos, along with C'est la vie, ciao, das Vistania, and Y vaya con Dios. If anybody doesn't know that one, Y vaya con Dios is a standard goodbye in Spanish. Go with God.